so on and so on. Jack Scapin is going to provide just a brief overview of the 1815 project on Ridge, as well as Ina with her group ERW and so on. If you just read the agenda, Nick will go after Ina's presentation, just so we don't keep everybody. And then I can do the reports. We'll close out with that. So does that sound like a plan?
Sharon, do we have to formally suspend the rules before we start? Suspend the rules to have video meeting?
No.
No.
The mayor issued a declaration that made it possible for all the boards, commissions, and committees of the city to be able to meet virtually during the governor's current disaster declaration.
Right.
Oh, great.
So I'm just going to read that paragraph that Nick mentioned, and then we can get started. Councilmember Burns, if you just want to have your agenda open and then start to go down.
Yep.
I did get a phone call from the other council members, so I'm going to have to put them on hold for a second. But as a result of an executive order issued by Governor J.B. Pritzker suspending in-person attendance requirements for public meetings, committee members and staff, city staff will be participating in this meeting remotely. Due to public health concerns, residents will not be able to provide public comment in person at the meeting. Those wishing to make public comment at the MWEBE committee meeting may provide public comment as a video participant by going to, and I have the link posted, and I did post it physically in person at City Hall in case anybody showed up, or by telephone by dialing 601-526-1184. The PIN number is 485-289-430. And with that, we want to start with the approval of the minutes.
Yeah, so, yeah, approval of July 21st, 2021 MWEBE committee minutes. Does anybody have any changes? Okay. Do we do a roll call on minutes and committees as well?
I can do a roll call. That's correct.
Okay.
So
do we have a second to approve the minutes?
I second.
Okay. Thank you. Sharon.
thank you. Roll call is Councilmember Braithwaite, Councilmember Burns,
Aye.
Kimon Hendricks,
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Kimon. Michael McLean,
Aye.
Waina Venture,
Aye.
Nisucha Abwa,
Aye.
okay, here is Councilmember Braithwaite, who just popped in. Councilmember Braithwaite, can you hear me? There we are. Are you on mute? We got started with the meeting. We did a roll call.
Perfect.
Okay, great. And
Thank you.
yeah, Councilmember Burns did get started for us.
Councilman Brady, I think we successfully approved the minutes, and that's all we did. So.
Oh, perfect, perfect. My apologies for having some tech difficulties. Go, if you have the agenda up and all those things, Councilman Burbs, you just want to go ahead and keep us moving?
Sure. Sharon, did you finish that vote, the roll call vote?
Yes, and we
Okay.
do have a quorum. Councilmember Braithwaite, Nick Cummings will go after Ina's report. He's listed towards the end, but you know, we want to have all that important stuff up front.
Yep.
And then I'll do the staff report. So that's the only change.
Thank you.
Okay. So Sharon, we're starting with 1850 Ridge project update.
That's correct. Jack Scapin is here. Jack, so much for making yourself available to give an update. Mark Valente of Valente Builders is also here, and they've done a phenomenal job with the 1815 Ridge project. We just wanted to give a brief update regarding the success we've had with trades, workforce development, and just a phenomenal job that these guys have done. So with that, I'll let Jack start his report for us and let Mark underscore anything he needs to. This is a private development, so we just want to illustrate how this can be successful with public and private developments.
Just to disclose for those who don't know, that's a Condor Partners development. That's my development, Michael McLean. So I am also here in support of them and the effort that the project made, but I'm, as a committee member as well. So.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity here to meet with everybody. It's great to see a lot of faces again, some familiar, some new ones. This was a great project to be a part of, and I really appreciate that opportunity from you, Mike, as well. To give you guys just a little bit of quick background on the scope of the work, we were able to construct a 9-story senior living building there at 1815 Ridge, as Sharon noted. However, we were faced with the challenge of starting this project on March 16th, literally the Monday after the world got crazy on Friday the 13th. And because of that, things got, as you all know, challenging. Going into the project the week before, we had met with Sharon and Nate Norman in her group, and we're really grateful for the partnership to get kicked off before we knew what we were about to embark upon. Their support and specifically Sharon, you've been wonderful to work with, constantly being there for me and trying to vet these people out and making sure that I got what I need out of these Evanstonians. So the long story short, and I'm happy to get into some more details as we go along here, is that we were able to achieve our goal of 10 Evanstonians working on the project. In fact, we exceeded the opportunities. We were able to provide 13 opportunities to different residents. 10 people did take us up on the opportunity and participated throughout the project. That was the reason for our success, is because we were able to partner with a lot of folks like yourselves, from Lynn Weiss at the Work Ethic Program, who was able to provide us with an Evanston Township High School gentleman by the name of Clark Hauser. Clark helped finish the job from our standpoint in punch list and going through. So it was really great to get him exposed to the different trades on the job. Another person who helped work with us towards the end of the project was Milton Reynolds of the Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church, and we were able to partner with him throughout the project as the neighbor directly adjacent to our project, but also with the Chessman organization, which I understand, Alderman, you're part of, as well as a number of other people here, I'm sure are. In which case we were able to provide an opportunity to Mr. Kofi Hops, who is a senior at the University of Illinois, to help us promote and document the project as we brought it home. Prior to that, we were able to successfully get Evanstonians working on site in the trades, dating back as early as May 13th, 2020, with the concrete contractor, R. Olson. We employed a number of tradesmen from May all the way through the end with Mr. Hops and Mr. Hauser. So from May of 2020 through the end of July 21, we were consistently having some participation of Evanstonian residents on the job. Furthermore, we were able to partner with Evanston businesses to make sure that some of the economic impact on the project was able to stay local. And overall, we contributed $1.5 million to Evanston Lumber and Ozinga in Evanston. So trying to help maintain that economic base in your community. And lastly, I'd also like to recognize the opportunity to work with Evanston Rebuilding Warehouse. Aina and Ann Nicklin were great to meet and to partner with here as well. They were able to tour our site early on and also provide us with some opportunities to connect with some people throughout the project. Mark, I appreciate your opportunity here to underscore any of the highlights I tried to bring to the table here.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for their collaboration over the last 18 months or so through the process, and also just make sure you all know that we want to continue to be supportive of especially the workforce development efforts, particular to the building trades, and to be a resource to the individuals and organizations in Evanston who are committed to working on this issue. We're currently in dialogue with Lynn Weiss at Work Ethic and Tana and Neil at MEAC to support what they're doing to get young people aware of the opportunities that are out there and to help facilitate them taking advantage of those opportunities. And we do expect in the future to have other project opportunities in Evanston. And we think that these efforts can lay some groundwork to make really good, long-lasting impact on individuals if we can continue this work towards getting apprenticeship positions, starting with work in the city of Evanston when we have those opportunities and make those available to young people in the community. So for us, the last 18 months has been about 1815 Ridge, but we're committed to the mission, so to speak, and intend to continue that work.
This is Michael. If I could just add just a few comments. One, thank you, Valenti Builders, the entire team. But you, Mark, and Jack for really dedicating yourselves to actually accomplishing this. Because not only is this hard in a normal environment, but doing it in a pandemic when apprenticeships are closed and unions are kind of shut down from an opportunity to get new people into them. You guys worked very, very hard with all your subs to really figure this out. And you really helped us as a committee and I think as staff to open up our ideas and really think, more broadly, further support what the warehouse has been doing as far as, as their work in the trades. I'm really very proud as an owner and a member of this committee to have had so many groups and so many people from the city and from not-for-profits and from private business come together on this and actually succeed when definitely the deck was stacked against us from the beginning. So I appreciate everybody's effort in this. Sharon as well for guiding us and keeping track of what we were doing and recommending different avenues and looking at it creatively. It really I think is something that has influenced what we are doing here in the city, and I think I appreciate that you're continuing to be dedicated to furthering your efforts.
And Michael, thank you for that, and just for vision and leadership going back to the beginning here in how we all tried to approach this. And again, that's really for me what's important that I wanted to express today is that we're not looking at this as an end. This is got to be a longitudinal effort, and we're continuing to kind of network and understand who some of the entities are who are involved in this and how we can be a positive part of connecting some dots in a way that leads to future opportunities. So just that's what I wanted to share, and thanks for the opportunity to be here to do that.
Yeah, and are y'all open to a few questions if we have any?
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah, do our best.
Any questions from the committee members?
Mike, can you just give us an overall picture of how the hiring process has been going? Where are you, or to you or the group, in terms of positions filled? And even more importantly, I know that you have a huge effort and push to get Evanston residents. If you can give us just like a ballpark percentage of how you're tracking with that.
So we are struggling to get that final certificate of occupancy. We're days away, I think.
Okay.
So that will certainly ramp up our hiring process.
Okay.
And the state inspections start next week for the final licensing, and that will be it. So of the 50 or so employees that we're going to have ultimately, we have around 15 currently hired, and another 4 or 5 identified, but they're staff members that don't have a role until the building is open, so they're not technically on payroll. We are
Sure.
trending around 45%. Let me back up. We're hiring from the top down, so executive director, head of nursing, head of sales, and so on, executive chef. We're about 45% Evanstonian,
That's great.
residents so far. So we're not just filling the young entry level positions with Evanston residents. We're filling the top positions.
Mhm.
I would say that of the 15, I think 14 are women or minorities.
Okay.
And maybe 13. But we are a very diverse team, and are really proud of the effort so far from the staff, the executive director, and Solaris Senior Living, who is the management company that is really guiding that these people will report to,
Yep.
and ultimately work for. So we're excited in the next 2 or 3 weeks to really get a lot of the staff on board. They've also been working with MAYAC, with
Mhm.
other not-for-profits in the area. We're expanding that. We're actually, I think, going to reach out to Connections to the Homeless to work with them to provide opportunities for full-time employment for people at risk of losing jobs or losing apartments.
Sure.
So it's been a really good effort. It's built on the foundation that the construction effort educated us on, right? And
Yep.
gave us the insights on how to get this done, because it's hard. I mean,
Yeah.
it is hard.
Yep.
And I know this committee is committed to making it easier. And I think we've been very successful in the last year and a half in doing that. And we look forward to continuing to figure out where those trigger points are, where those barriers are, and trying to eliminate them.
Thank you. Thank you for that update. If there's anything that you can do, Mike, to share those open positions that you can forward to myself and Councilmember Burns to socialize in our community, just put it in the chat group if you have an open link. That would be great.
I don't on me. I'm in the car. I apologize. That's why I'm not on screen.
No worries.
But I will follow up with Melissa, our executive director, and get the open position list and continue to forward that on to all of you to help.
That's great.
From what I hear, and I'm
Mhm.
not on the day-to-day on the hiring, but from what I hear, the hospitality and healthcare industry in general is having a very hard time hiring.
Oh, yeah.
What I'm being told by our executive director is that we have an overwhelming response from local people who want to work in this building.
It's great.
And we're really excited about that. So
That
we're
is
very confident in continuing to meet or potentially exceed our commitment of 50% of our employees and from Evanston and keep pushing it forward.
And Mike, Sharon, if you just want to also include me when you send out that information, I'd like to also get it socialized through
Yes,
the
of course.
city's community engagement folks to make sure it's
Of course.
in the newsletters for the aldermen, things of that nature.
Great. We'll do.
Great.
Any other questions? Just for myself, if you could explain, I didn't see it in the packet, but just this what you brought to Evanston. What was the project?
So it's 1815 Ridge. It's the corner of Ridge, Emerson, and Green Bay, just north of Mount Zion Church, which is Ridge and Clark. It is a 9-story, 163 unit primarily assisted living building. So it's got 33 units or so of memory care. 90 units of assisted living, and about 40 or so units of independent living. It's a building designed to feed, 600 to 800 meals a day, provide all needs for residents of the building, for daily assistance of daily living. It is not a nursing home, so it's not being licensed to provide nursing care, but it does provide nursing supervision, medicine distribution, help getting dressed, help showering and bathing. And we have about 15,000 square feet of indoor amenity space, including dining, recreation, art and crafts, outdoor with four different outdoor balconies. It is a market rate. There's no support for seniors in our state right now whatsoever, for subsidies for supportive living. It is a full market rate project. We have committed to hiring at least 50% of our staff from within Evanston. We've spent at least $250,000 to date on improving the church's property, their access, their handicap accessibility, their parking lots. We have some work yet to finish, but that's part of our public benefit. We are a LEED Silver certified building because it's a planned development. We've got a temporary certificate of occupancy that doesn't allow residents or staff in the building, just furniture installation and whatnot. We expect the full TCO and certificate of occupancy this week, or maybe early next week at the latest for paper processing, and should be open to the public in early October for residents to move in.
Do you know if our affordable housing policy applies to this project?
Yeah. So the affordable housing policy did not apply to the project. However, we are currently making a $400,000 contribution to the Affordable Housing Fund. We have reserved in the plan development 2 on-site units for affordable housing at 80% AMI, not including services and food. It's very awkward. There's a real gap. Even if we gave away the rent for free, it's still $3,000 a month for food, recreation, nursing, and other supervisory services. So it's an awkward situation of which we are discussing with staff, and will ultimately discuss with City Council on what might be a better option to put somebody who can't afford to be in the building. May not be the best option, and we discussed this at length when we were approved, and it went forward anyway, and without real resolution as to how we get this done, because the state does not offer vouchers, subsidies, or anything for seniors to be in a supportive living. We have some ideas, creative ideas, I think productive ideas in line with the new city council members and the kind of a different vision. Or this was approved at least 4 years ago, so a different vision than Evanston had back then, that we are excited to explore, and we'll be presenting. But we will right now have $400,000 contribution and 2 units on site, but we think there's a better solution for the 2 units on site, and we'll be discussing that in the future.
Hey, Mike, if I can add on to that, because I think you're selling yourself a little bit short in terms of the contributions, overall community benefits. You've also, just for the intimacy of this group, you might want to share the improvements around the church, the dollar amount, and of course, for everyone that's on our committee, he wasn't required to do the I don't want to say internship. What's the word I'm looking for, Sharon?
Local hiring.
Thank you. He was not
The
obligated.
apprenticeships. The
Yes, he was
apprenticeships.
not obligated to do the local hire that translated into apprenticeships. That was something that he did by choice, and to make a point for other developers that would come under this similar conditions.
Yeah, there's no municipal money in this project, so the public benefits, we offered the local hiring as part of our public benefits. We spent approximately at least $500,000 in public right-of-way and church property improvements around the church. That includes rebuilding what was called Oak Avenue. We renamed it Norwood after the former pastor of the church. So the street is now permanently named Norwood Lane, I believe. We rebuilt the entire street. We built sidewalks which did not exist. We widened it. We paid for a new parking meter, part of the new parking system. We rebuilt the entire side yard and lower parking lot and handicap accessibility to the church with all new landscaping. We expanded and resealed the upper parking lot. We connected them with a ramp. The two parking lots were separated by a 5 foot shear wall in the past, so that there was not accessibility there. Now there is accessibility. We were supposed to landscape the upper parking lot. When we removed the raised planters that the church wanted removed to replace with lower plantings, we actually exposed well caps and things from the former gas station. And our environmental consultants wouldn't let us actually dig into the ground and plant anything. So we're working with Megan Jones and community development and Parks and Rec and our landscaper to come up with a solution for a raised bed that has less maintenance than the church. The church had a lot of maintenance issues with the raised beds prior. We also took a gravel alley and created a permanent paved alleyway with controlled access points and signage, as well as improved the intersection at Clark and what is now Norwood, which had a really awkward kind of pork chop island in the middle of it. We also improved the streetscape from about 250 feet along Ridge, which was a barren industrial land with numerous parkway trees and landscaping, as well as two public parklets, which are small public parks with benches at either end of the site. I think that's about it. It was a significant effort and a lot of public land that was improved as part of the development. If you recall, this was kind of a forgotten back alley corner of downtown, and it really is a gateway site, and it looks much more like a gateway site than it ever has in its past.
So you're right, and so to Councilmember Burns, who I know is very familiar with that corner, anyone else, if you hadn't had an opportunity, the amenities and all the work that he's done, the landscaping, it really helps to extend the downtown to Ridge, and it sets up just an amazing connect point for the work that you're going to do, Alderman Burns, and for our city council as you continue to improve that area. So, Mike, thank you.
Yeah, we are the southern tip of the TIF.
Yeah.
And we will be adding a significant increment into that TIF.
Yes.
So we're happy to be part of it and see the growth of how that community that's within that area really creates itself and regenerates itself through the use of those resources.
Yep. Alderman Burns, I'm gonna turn it back over to you to keep us moving, but this is great.
This is great. No, I appreciate you leading in all these areas and local hiring and and carving out staff positions for Evanston, a contribution into the affordable housing fund.
Thank you.
Really leading and showing developers how this can be done. So I appreciate that. And I will extend an invitation because I know for workforce, and so I know we have an affordable housing steering committee that should be. Would love to see you there, and then I'm also a few weeks from starting a new committee called Here to Stay. That's going to be looking at immediate actions that we can take to help address some of the displacement of longtime residents that we're seeing in Evanston. But thanks so much. I want to move to hear from Ina about partnership took place, but maybe during your presentation you can add that to your presentation just to keep things moving. But thank you so much, Mike and Mark and Jack and everyone else here from Valenti Brothers. Appreciate it. Sharon, just to make sure Cummings speak to new business first before Ina's presentation? Or is Ina next?
No, we're good to have Ina. Yeah, Ina
Okay.
go after
Just want to make sure.
Jack and the 1815 project update.
Okay.
Yeah, no, you're fine. Ina's gonna give her presentation, and then afterwards, we'd like to have Nicholas Cummings
Okay,
speak
after
about
that.
supplier diversity policy.
So next,
Great.
Yep, go ahead. I was just going to introduce you. Yeah, next up, Evanston Rehab Warehouse Workforce ARPA funds, and this is Ina Gutierrez, and you can take it away.
Thank you, Alderman Burns, Alderman Braithwaite, members of the committee. We have been here before, but I want to make sure with new committee members, we have an opportunity to introduce ourselves. I'm Ina Gutierrez. I'm the Executive Director of the Evanston Rebuilding Warehouse. I'm here with two of my colleagues, Mel Sanchez, who's our Development Director, and Ann Nicklin, who many of you know as our Director of Workforce Training and Deconstruction Services. We thought we'd use this opportunity to kind of share a little bit about our work and specifically how the City of Evanston's investments have helped grow our work, as well as talk about this unique opportunity that we have not only with ARPA, but in a labor market in which we have the opportunity to provide access and diversify the building trades. And so we're excited about that and to share that with you. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. See if this works. All right. Everyone can see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
You can see it.
Okay, you can see the logo? Okay, perfect.
Yes.
So we are the Evanston Rebuilding Warehouse. We are proudly located in the 2nd Ward at 1245 Hartree Avenue. We are a nonprofit social enterprise, and we reuse building materials, reduce construction waste, and train, connect, and support folks seeking careers in the building trades. What that looks like on the ground in Evanston is we have a reuse retail store that is open to the public, which I hope many of you have been inside and found treasures diverted from the waste stream. We provide educational programming on reuse and repair, so learning how to fix things instead of throwing them away. We're the only deconstruction service provider, a nonprofit deconstruction service provider in the region, so we take apart houses by hand for recycling and reuse, and we do workforce training, and we're talking more specifically about the workforce training program today. So our workforce training program, we've been doing workforce training for 6 years. This actually might be on the Valenti site when we got to see a site visit there. I'm not sure.
It certainly
but our
is.
training program
Higher
provides
up.
work-based. Is it? All right. Because I know we came a couple
Yes.
of times. The view is very nice. That's a while ago.
Yeah, that's ours.
They graciously showed us around on the site. And we provide a few things in our program. It is a paid program, 20 weeks long. And we provide work-based learning on deconstruction sites. We provide industry certifications. So all of our participants receive the OSHA 10 in construction, the EPA RRP, the lead paint renovator certification, as well as forklift. And we provide supports, personal and professional readiness for folks overcoming barriers to employment to start careers in the trades. More than half of our participants are Evanston residents, and all are low income. And it provides an opportunity for folks to learn new skills, find employment in a field that has a lot of growth potential, which also benefits the person trained, but overall our community. And we don't do any of this without partnerships. So just wanted to highlight, we have strong relationships. All of the groups that have already been mentioned, Evanston, MEAC, the local employment program, the city's youth and young adult division. We have partnerships with everyone. We feel like what we bring is this transitional work-based learning employment for the trades in conjunction with what everyone else does to help residents get and keep a career. You can see here how we've grown with Evanston. We started as a very small program. As an organization, we're only 10 years old. And so you can see the investments that the city of Evanston has made with us, as well as how that has impacted the number of people that we serve. So this committee has been gracious to, in the last couple of years, award $40,000 to expand our services and train more Evanston residents. We've received funds from the city's small business workforce program. And in 2020, we received TIF funding to move into our much larger home at 1245 Hartree. So now we occupy more than 28,000 square feet in that space that is open to the public. And I hope when we get to meet in person again, really is a driver of sustainability and employment in our community. We want to open our doors to everyone to meet and to connect and to receive supportive services there. So I just want to highlight what is the opportunity before us and the growth potential. And I think our developer and builder friends know very well that over the next decade, billions of dollars are going to be invested in major public construction and infrastructure projects. I see on your agenda here, you're going to talk about lead service line replacement. This is an amazing opportunity. There are literally more jobs than people to fill those jobs. And you can see the graphic here that we have shows that construction employment dipped in the pandemic and has not yet risen to levels that were before the pandemic. And so this, from our perspective, is an opportunity. This is an opportunity for Evanston residents to access these careers, as well as encourage full inclusion of women, people of color, and other folks in the construction workforce. I live in Evanston, I live in the 5th Ward, and I want Evanston residents fixing our streets and our sidewalks and replacing our lead service pipes. And I think that we can do that, but it is an issue of supply and demand. And the task before us, we believe, is to grow that supply in new and more innovative ways. So you can see here, and it is also in the packet, our idea is to be able to leverage ARPA funding to expand our workforce training services and create a pre-apprenticeship building trades program. So what we have already, the core 20-week inclusive intensive program will not go away. What we're suggesting is that we try to reach more people that maybe don't need that level of support, that maybe don't need 20 weeks of getting up, working in a crew, learning job readiness, and receiving those services. Instead, what we want to be able to do is to be able to provide more pathways in quicker ways to be able to get folks into union apprenticeship programs, because we know that a lot of these municipal and infrastructure projects are going to be union projects. And getting into a union takes time. My dad was a railroad foreman growing up and a union member, and I remember being a kid and him going through that process. It was not easy. And it is not easy for a lot of members of our community for lots of reasons. We're building a building trades program that reflects best practice in the state of Illinois. And there is actually other funding we're trying to leverage to figure out how we do this, coming from the governor's office himself, as an acknowledgement that we need to train people up to be able to access these jobs. So this kind of shares kind of the components of what we would do in our more expanded program. So for recruitment, we would focus on Evanston residents passionate about starting or restarting a building trades career. One place, obviously, to start would be with this committee and the services provided to residents from the city's local employment program. Industry recognized credentials, we would continue to work with our partners, OAI Inc. and JARC, the Jane Addams Resource Center, so we can get participants the OSHA 10 in construction, the first aid CPR certification, and the National Center for Construction Education and Research certificate, which is a nationally known certificate that assists in apprenticeship program pathways. We would continue to do work-based learning. That is the core of who we are. So providing opportunities for participants to do work on our deconstruction job sites, which operate in the city of Chicago, Evanston, and all along the North Shore. We would continue our professional and personal readiness services and partner with our network of social service agencies and the city to help provide supportive and career readiness services. We also have limited budget. We are a SNAP to Success program, which allows us some government funding to assist with reducing barriers that prevent participants from accessing and staying in careers. So that could be getting your driver's license back, having tools on the first day, glasses, haircuts for interviews. We have access to funding for all of that kind of stuff. And then finally, our employment services. We have a network of more than 30 employer partners in the trades that we are seeking to grow. And we would also partner with groups already doing great work like Hire 360 for those interested in pursuing union apprenticeship programs. We would also directly connect participants to apprenticeship programs and assist with the application and the entry processes, and especially are looking for apprenticeship programs with the most demand for services, which we believe will be laborers, pipe fitters, and the plumbers unions, just to start. So that is kind of our big idea. We are presenting it to the committee both because we value your partnership and also believe that the objective of the committee is also our goal, which is to get more folks in the trades and to have the diversity of our community reflected in building our community back up through some of these public dollars that we know are going to come. A couple of things I just wanted to mention just about us. We talked about SNAP to Success, but also we are very aware that the ARPA funding is really a once in a generation, if not once in a lifetime opportunity. And as a social enterprise who earns 75% of our budget, we believe that we can leverage that social enterprise model to be able to create something lasting that connects employers with qualified and skilled workers that also can be financially sustainable in the long term. And that is our little presentation. This is a house in Glencoe outside that we took down from roof to foundation.
Thank you so much, Ina. Any questions from the committee members?
I have a few questions. Hi, Anna. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
Good, thank you. I have a couple questions. First question, not that it's necessary, but was there some kind of survey or research done within Evanston that concluded that Black and brown people, I'm going to say, want these positions, quote unquote, or are highly interested?
We have not done a formal survey. I will say that in the 6 years that we've done workforce training, demand well exceeds supply of the positions that we have. And the vast majority of people that we serve are women and BIPOC folks. I think statistically broader than Evanston, you can certainly demonstrate what representation looks like. And we really lean into the trades as an industry because it doesn't have a lot of educational requirements. It has a lot of things that make it very accessible for people. And the Evanston residents that participate in our program, and Ann, you can speak better to this than I can, are all folks that are good with their hands. And they're really good with their hands. They're always the person that gets called when the sink breaks. And just being interested in trying to find that industry, but not having access or understanding of just the breadth of what the building trades means, because it means a ton of different things.
Yeah, I would say definitely from the perspective of the folks that we serve are coming to us because this is where they want to go and they haven't had another pathway to it. So whether it's recent ETHS grads or, right now we just registered a 52-year-old Evanston single mother who's going to start with us on Monday. And is really excited to completely change careers. She has a master's degree and she just wants to get into construction and doesn't have another way into it. So we are really meeting people and trying to connect them from their goals. That's where we're really taking our lead from.
Got it. Thank you. And then next question.
Sorry, if I could just chime in briefly, Kimon, on that same subject. What many of us didn't realize, and we did do some research on this when we started 1815, is that it is very difficult. The barriers to entry are very high for people of color to enter the trades, particularly historically to enter the unions, which I'll call kind of the PhD, right, of the trades. The barriers to entry were put up a long time ago. Many of the unions have expressed commitment to starting to erode those barriers, but it's organizations like this that get people to embrace the career that is very important. If you think about the way our school systems and our entire institutional background of employment really views the trades, from junior high on, our colleges and our educational system really discourages this generation of young people from entering the trades in favor of a college degree. And we've certainly seen over the last few years, but over many years, that discouragement is a detriment, and it leads to frustration among people who, could be good and could fit the trades very well and have amazing careers from actually pursuing those careers because they simply just don't know how to get to them or were denied access in the past. When you think about who our tradespeople are and their importance in our community, these are people who get off work at 3:30, 4 o'clock. There are coaches, there are church members, there are community organizers. It's different than our office workers and our college educated careers, and it's really, nationally we're seeing a reconciliation or an effort to reconcile that those barriers with opening them up and destigmatizing a career in the trades versus a college path. And I think that's where the warehouse really provides a critical entry point to opening this up and fostering the conversation that not everybody needs to go to college. And in fact, you can have a very, very good quality of life and build genuine wealth within your community by being in the trades as opposed to the college path. Just to speak to that again, it's not a formal survey, so to speak, but it is something that our industry is experiencing and recognizing on a broad scale.
And I can echo.
Got it. Thank you for that.
Yeah, real quick. Let's let Kamon finish her questions, and then we'll go in order. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Next question, and I'll make it quick. How much on an average does a person make after they complete the training program?
So for our training program, it's varied over the years, and it really does depend individual to individual, but we are seeing people earning an average of around $16 to $16.50 an hour when they come out of our program. For some folks, it's going as high as 19. I think that as we move towards more folks going into the unions, we're going to start to see a much higher average. And we're still seeing employers catch up with both the Cook County increase as well as the city of Chicago increase. So it's slowly been moving up. 3 years ago, when we were getting our graduates out, people were trying to offer them $12 an hour. And we've been training employers, right? Kind of every step of the way. It's not just working with our trainees. It's also working really actively with employers because we want successful matches. I'm not interested in a 10-minute match. I'm interested in a 10-month match. So the wages have been moving up, but honestly, it's been slow. Open wage, the majority of our placements to date have been in what's called an open shop, a non-union shop, and it's typically smaller employers. So the wages have been slower to catch up, but we are targeting for everybody a living wage, which at this point, I believe is $16.10 an hour in Cook County. I'd have to double check that, but we use the MIT living wage calculator, and that's where we're really targeting the ideal placement. I'd say in the second half of this year, we're seeing more of the $17 an hour, more of the $19 an hour targets and placements. And I think we will continue to move in that direction in this market.
Got it. Thank you. And then last question. The positions that you guys have on the whatever we received via email, your presentation, are those positions already filled? And if not, have you guys considered kind of like a meshing of those positions with your training program candidates or people that have completed your training program?
Yeah, great question. So a couple of these positions are already, it's kind of an expansion to what we already do. So we already have a director of workforce training, that's Anne. We have a couple other folks that would be dedicating their time. None of this will be able to happen without a significant investment like ARPA, which is why we're proposing it. So we haven't done as much of that work, but we are committed to hiring graduates from our program. Both of our we have 2 site supervisors in our organization that oversee the day-to-day work-based learning training, and they're both graduates of our program. And so that's something that we look forward to and foster.
Okay, awesome. That's it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Someone else with their hands up. I've never pronounced your name before.
Yeah.
Please tell me.
My name is Bonaventure.
Bonaventure, you are up.
People call me Bona.
You have the floor.
Thank you, Aina and Anne, for your work. I think I really appreciate that. I want to know what is the platform you guys use to select or hire people into your program. And I'm asking that because I know it's difficult for Black and brown people to get access to those platforms. And I will really appreciate if you guys can make a time and have clear targets for people like me to get access to those platforms. That's one. The second question is I want to echo Mike about Black or brown get access to union opportunities. Is rare, is difficult. Mm-hmm. And I really want you to pay attention to that and help those folks who want to work but cannot find access to those opportunities. Those are my 2, not questions, but comments.
I appreciate that. I can speak to certainly, I think, both parts. The platform that we use for applications is it starts with an online application. We use a basic Google form. So it's an online application. It's available on our websites. And we've had, honestly, pretty good uptake with it. I will say that for a lot of our applicants, they are getting support on that. Our largest recruiter, by far, our largest feeder is the city of Evanston, Youth and Young Adult Services. So Audrey Thompson, Stacy Maraney, Nathan Norman, Lakeisha, Gennaro, all of them, they are our best recruiters for our program. And they are certainly providing access to a lot of the folks that they recruit in terms of computer access, internet access. But we haven't seen it. I mean, I've been doing the applications for about 3 years now, and we haven't seen it be a major hurdle, though it is a long application, I'll say that. And that's somewhat intentional. It's a 20-week program, and I really want people to succeed. And so it is a welcoming environment for people to engage with, but it is an application process, and not everybody makes it through it. So the online application is the first step. And then actually our project manager, Desiree Hunter, who I know some of you have met and spoken with, is incredibly responsive. So most people who apply are going to receive a phone call or a text within about 24 hours and come in for an interview, depending on where we're at with recruitment. And honestly, at this point, we're in expansion mode with recruitment, and we will be for the next year, and I think quite a bit beyond that. I don't know if you saw on the graph, but when I started 3 years ago, we had 6 participants in 2018, and we're now at over 30 with a quarter still to go in the year. So that doesn't include the 4 to 5 people that got enrolled today. And it's a lot of Evanston residents. So we make sure that after that online application, the first thing that you hear is a human voice. You talk to Desiree and you have an interview with Desiree. And that works really well for us, is doing that combination of accessibility. So you can do the application while you're on the bus. You can do the application at 3 o'clock in the morning. But after that, you start getting real human contact. But I'd certainly be interested in any suggestions you have about how we can reach more people. Because for every applicant, we're probably only accepting 1 in 3 applicants, partly because of them, partly because of us, partly because sometimes people get other opportunities. In terms of providing a more reliable pathway for Black and brown folks into the unions, I hear you 100%. There are a variety of different barriers that are in place, and some of them are really static. The unions have been traditionally deeply unwelcoming places, and that continues to stand. And so one of the great opportunities that I see with ARPA is, rather than trying to change all the unions at once, I'm really excited to work on a few specific ones. Things like the lead pipe replacement, they provide an opportunity to work in depth with the pipe fitters, with the laborers, with the plumbers, and in particular to work through employers. Oftentimes we talk about unions and we talk about people going into the unions. The reality is that we want people to get hired by employers who will sponsor them into the unions. Otherwise, individuals have to be self-sponsored, which is really expensive and deeply difficult unless you're already really rich and living at home with your parents. So we want folks to get corporate sponsorships in. So what I'm really excited about with all of these opportunities is that I think it's a big win, not just for us, but really for all the Evanston employers. So I'm thinking about Cahill, I'm thinking about, Jack and Valenti, and I'm thinking about all these kind of employers that we know are already on the same page and looking at the same goals. And we finally have enough people that we can really help them move these targets and help move the union. So the scale of all of this, I think we're going to see real change, which is a long time coming. And I'm sure it will never be nearly enough and not nearly soon enough. But I do think that we have an opportunity to really move a tide in a good way.
Bonaventure, do you have any other questions or comments? Or
No, that's very good. Thank you, guys.
Mark, you're next up.
Yeah, I just wanted to supplement a couple of things that we heard recently. One, in terms of the historical barriers, it's been my observation in working on this and talking to people that one of the enduring effects of that is that there is, in a lot of cases, not a great awareness of what some of these career opportunities are, and how productive they can be for people who choose them. And I think that I haven't done studies and surveys, but I think it's because of in certain communities there just aren't a lot of people who have done the same thing themselves and are sharing that with their family members and neighbors and so on. And so that's one of the things that we're currently trying to be helpful on. In fact, we're delivering in the next day or so to Lynn Weiss with Work Ethic some just general information about what it means to be an apprentice in a building trades labor union for her use. And there's a workshop, I think maybe on Saturday at the high school. And so I think people just don't have that awareness. And then to supplement the answer to the question about wage rates on the union side, I can do that. It differs by the union, but generally speaking, the journeyman, which is like the kind of the full-fledged union member rate, depending on what trade it is somewhere between $40 and $50 per hour wage, plus really excellent health and retirement benefits and so on. So it's a quite productive career. I mean, it's hard work and all that, but there really some excellent opportunities. In terms of the apprenticeship period, that differs a lot depending on the union and the nature of the work that they do. The electricians are 5 years, the laborers are 2, and that makes some sense based on the nature of the work that those respective trades do. But typically, a first-year apprentice will get paid on the order of 40% of the full journeyman wage. So think of that as maybe 18 or 20 an hour, and then that kind of tiers up on a scheduled basis over the course of the apprenticeship, at the end of which you're full wage as a journeyman. So we're aware of the kind of how we got here in terms of historical barriers, but as Michael pointed out, I can echo that there is a lot of momentum broadly in our industry to course correcting that and doing a much better job in the present and future of those opportunities being available more easily and more broadly, and that's what we're trying to be helpful to, including and specifically within the city here.
Thanks, Mark. Any other questions? Okay. Seeing none, we're going to move on. Ina, thank you so much, Ann. Thank you.
Thanks for having us. I would just say that, I don't know what this ARPA process looks like, but we'd really appreciate the committee's support as we move forward with this, and not only in a academic supportive high five way, but in a real, let's do the work on the ground way. We're not a big community, and we think there's a lot of potential here. So thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'll quickly speak to that. We're still trying to figure out what our process is going to be. there's been a little discussion around having organizations apply to the respective committees, economic development for economic development proposals, social service committee for social service related proposals, and then and that'll be scored by staff based on criteria that the full council comes up with, and then of course final approval would go through the council once those recommendations come from the committee level, and then there's also some other ideas about whether or not the council wants a bit more control over kind of vision and outcomes, and do we want to seek out certain proposals that fit our long-term goals, or do we want people to apply and kind of take what comes in? So I think we're still trying to sort through that, but we should have some information out to everyone soon. But this is really helpful. I want to say that I actually didn't know Rebuilding Warehouse received TIF funds, and I'm excited to know because we made, as a city, a really an investment in this organization, and I for one think we should continue to, because as far as I know, they're really the only Evanston-based workforce development training opportunity for residents, and we need to do more of it. We have a lot of work to do, and so I think we should continue to invest in people that we've supported in the past. So thank you so much for the presentation, and Sharon, because I keep forgetting, I think Council Cummings is up next. We're going to scoot him up, right?
We're going to scoot
Yeah.
Nick Cummings. Dave Stoneback is also here to just kind of underscore policy changes for supplier diversity.
Perfect.
So we'll have Nick take.
All right, Council Cummings, you're up next. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. Nicholas Cummings, Corporation Counsel for the City of Evanston. I'm here tonight because an issue came up that Sharon brought to my attention. It was brought to her attention by someone else, and Dave has sought guidance from our department on how to solve the problem. And that is, we don't really have a supplier diversity program in Evanston. We have MWEBE programs for contracting and services, but not for suppliers. And so we've had at least an instance, and potentially other instances previously, where contractors were trying to meet their MWEBE goals by contracting subcontractors that weren't providing any products or any services, but instead they were being used as a pass-through to purchase supplies. And they were providing supplies for the project and then trying to get the 25% credit on their contract with the city. This is somewhat shady on the low end and potentially illegal on the upper end. But the real issue is that there's holes in our process, and hopefully this committee can give some recommendation as to how to solve it. First and foremost, there is nothing in our city code that requires supplier diversity, like there is for subcontracts and for services in construction. There's nothing in our form contract for products and services that require supplier diversity. And so we would definitely want to try and tackle both of those things, but it's a matter of how we go about it. I know that the city code needs to be updated, but there are a couple of avenues that I can suggest that maybe this committee might be interested in discussing. I have a friend of mine who was the CEO of the Chicago Minority Supplier Development Council that could come in and try and provide some insight on how to implement something like this. I have a former colleague of mine who was a partner, and I had it up just now at Reyes Curson. Reyes Curson is a minority owned law firm that specializes in MWEB, minority and women business owned enterprise, and helping municipalities and state government, et cetera, actually implement those goals and make sure that those goals are actually constitutional. I had a conversation with Councilmember Braithwaite a few weeks ago. I don't know when the last time our program has been reviewed or if it's ever been reviewed, but it might be worth the city's time to have it reviewed to make sure that we are actually in compliance and that we don't end up at some point in federal court for trying to actually achieve these goals. So I will listen for any questions or leave it to the committee to make any sort of recommendations. But I will say that the city code definitely needs to be updated to include something for supplier diversity in Title I, Chapter 17, which is where we actually have our procurement sort of process laid out. And also our contract will likely need to reflect that as well once that code is updated. But how we go about doing that is what this committee, we would be looking for recommendations on.
Council comments before I go to our first question. To be clear, the direction you're looking for us is to proceed. What's your recommendation? That you attend one of our next MWEBE meetings to provide a report, to have some of the guests speak about this, to give us a draft of, an updated policy. How do you propose we move forward?
My recommendation is probably to get somebody from the outside to come in and tell this committee essentially what that ordinance needs to look like. My department would actually draft the ordinance, and then this committee will recommend it to APW. APW would then send it to City Council, et cetera, et cetera. But that's not something that I believe that my department, and I'm not trying to shortchange anybody in my department, I just don't think we have that knowledge base in the department. I would welcome some of that consultative information from the outside, even if it's in the Evanston community outside of the resources that I just mentioned. Those are just two resources that I just happen to know of. If anyone else has ideas in terms of how we can solve this issue. But it was pointed out when it was brought to Sharon's attention that Chicago, IDOT, and Illinois have been able to stop this sort of pass-through shenanigans by contractors. And so the fact that they're able to get away with it in Evanston, we need to sort of close off that loophole as well.
Michelle. Michelle, are you with us? I see your hands up. Was that by mistake, or you have a question? Okay, we're gonna go to.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, I didn't unblock my microphone. Well, thank you all for letting me speak and ask some questions. My name is Michelle Cantor. I'm a partner at McDonald Hopkins Law Firm, where I'm the chair of the government contracting group, and I've been doing certifications, MWEBE, veteran, and all federal certifications for over 30 something years of my career. And I'm also the outside counsel to Federation of Women Contractors and on the Women's Business Development Board. I'm not here on this behalf. I'm here because I've just been following Evanston and some other cities and what they're doing. I've been very involved with the WB, MBE ordinances in Chicago, and I do counsel, and I'm not looking for legal work or something, but that's not why I'm on this line, but I do counsel people in guiding them in what's compliant and not compliant, and understand the background of the city's MBEWB program and how they do comply. I did have a couple questions, but after hearing what has just been said, it does seem like I don't know if there's necessarily a lot of large holes in your ordinance. I think instead there needs to be probably some procedures put in place for compliance, better procedures. And for instance, there's a self-performance requirement that you have, or that if there's going to be a subcontractor on a job, or a contractor that's going to be looking for goals for itself as a minority or woman contractor, how is that 25% self-performance monitored, and who does the monitoring, and how strong is the monitoring? Is it just a report, or is it someone going out in the field and interviewing the various subcontractors and their employees? As it relates to not having a supplier diversity program, I would argue that you do have a supplier diversity program, because it does, your ordinance does talk about participation and credits for material purchases, and it is a 60% 60% goal to be met for the value of the materials. That is a WBE, MBE, or EBE that that provides that regularly deals in that product. So you do have that program. It's a matter of how contractors are actually reporting those goals. If they're actually taking 100% of those of that supply from a woman business or a minority business instead of taking the 60%, and and are you actually doing those evaluations before contracts are awarded? And so there's a variety of different things, and I'd be happy to volunteer to give you some guidance and talk to the Federation of Women Contractors, and I'm sure they would like to give some input, because everybody wants to see these programs work. I surely do. I've been supporting women businesses and veteran businesses and minority businesses all my career, and that's what I do primarily. And I love these programs, and I just want to see them make it. I want to see it work properly, and in order for them to be in order for there to be these programs are designed to give small businesses, especially minority and women and disadvantaged businesses, a better level or playing field. And without fair rules being applied consistently in the bidding process as well as the compliance process, there's a lot of women and minority businesses that really aren't getting the fair shake they should be getting. And so therefore, I did have a couple questions that related to compliance, but I'm wondering if you would rather just talk with someone, to move it to you, Mr. Cummings, and provide you separate questions so we can get a better understanding. And then ultimately, you can probably get better guidance on the issue as well.
So I will say that the compliance issue might not be able to be answered unless Dave can speak to that tonight. But I do know that our process is somewhat, I don't want to say disjointed. There is the purchasing department, which actually does the evaluation of the bids and all of that stuff that comes in beforehand. And then there's also the public works and engineering department that might monitor after the fact.
Yeah, and they're just also, I think part of it is that there not being a disconnect as to who is supposed to be doing what as it relates to compliance, because there are two parts to your ordinance. One is the bidding process, and and what goals the contractor is signing an affidavit that he or she as a contractor will be met, and then during performance, how are those goals being met, and then after is like what actual goals were met by looking at the subcontractors' payment applications and other reporting to see if it was actually done. And then also, to the extent that contractors are getting waivers of WBE and MBE goals, how is that reported to the council? And so that that perhaps your goals aren't being met because waivers are actually given. And so the city is always put to task on, as well as state, on whether they're waiving any goals for projects. I don't know if smaller cities that aren't like City of Chicago, if you are actually providing waivers, because your ordinance allows for a waiver. It's just a matter of how those waivers are reported, and what is the right procedure for giving a waiver versus an improper procedure for giving a waiver.
And Michelle, I'm sorry, this is Councilmember. We unfortunately haven't met, and I appreciate so much of what you're sharing. Do you mind turning on your video? Are you in a position to do so?
Well, actually, I had to move because my bandwidth is so bad. So I'm in my basement and it's just a mess. But I'll turn it on. You can see my face. Okay, that's only fair. Or if you don't mind, I can move. If you could give me a minute, I could log onto my other computer and then I could actually stay on. But,
and are you a resident of the city of Evanston by any chance?
I'm sorry, I am not a resident. But I understood this was a public forum, so I hope I'm here correctly.
No, you and anyone else that has an interest in what we're doing here is you're absolutely invited. The purpose of asking is because you've hit on some really important topics, and I'm mindful of time as we go through our meeting. And I just want to make sure that I connect you with Sharon, who will be able to address those questions that you have in greater detail versus us trying to cover that along with the agenda that we have in front of us. So it is so nice. Thank you so much. It's great to see
Dirty
that.
basement.
I'm just thank you to meet you and see what you look like, and hopefully in the near future we'll be able to meet in person. But yeah, if you could throw your contact information, you hit on some things that I would love to respond to, but time is definitely doesn't permit. And then to Nick, if I could just make another quick comment. You have hit on, Nick, some things that we've touched on, and just for the benefit of the committee. So our focus is always Evanston-based businesses. So obviously we pay attention to our people of color, our women, our veterans, but as it stands right now, that's something that we're working towards, making those distinctions within our local group. But the overall focus, and historically, like if you're a business within the 4x7 Evanston's boundaries, we want to make sure that we're providing like equal opportunity. And once we achieve that goal, then obviously we get to drill down a little bit deeper. So Nick, I would say I counted 4 different categories that you touched on. One of the things that we've talked to Luke and Sharon about is self-certifying as a city, and what is that process. We had somebody on our committee, his name was Josh Gustinson. He was part of I can't remember the exact name of his organization.
Chicago Supplier Diversity Council. It's where Nick has his associate.
Exactly. So maybe Nick, between myself, Councilman Burns, and also Sharon, we can have a quick powwow. I think you understand exactly what we're trying to do, and with Luke and the staff present, I would just task you to do the work and then outsource as you see fit based on your time and things that you have on your desk as a priority. And then we can always come back if we need a presentation from someone for insight. You know what I mean?
So our department, before we lost our intern for the summer, did look into the process of having Evanston have its own certification process.
Yeah.
And we discovered that, and I apologize if I didn't forward this on, because Brian George sent me sort of a memo on it.
Okay.
We discovered that apparently the dirty little secret that no one says about Cook County certification process or Chicago certification process is that it's all outsourced. And it's the same organization that's providing the underlying certification to the city of Chicago and Cook County. And so I know historically we have accepted, if you are certified by Chicago,
we are correct.
And I think that we probably could continue to do that because Chicago's already outsourcing it to someone else anyway.
Makes sense.
And Nick, my understanding is Chicago, IDOT, the other entities have a very robust certification program to make sure about, because I recently had a question about the different categories of minorities, and we simply don't have that because we accept the certifications from Chicago and the state and the federal.
May I point something out to you? There are very common certification criteria for even the federal, state, local levels, and that relates to ownership and control of the company. So real ownership, and then legal control and operational control, meaning expertise. But all of the agencies differ in some of their rules and regulations. And one of the big differences that that will be obvious to you when I bring it up is that if you're a DBE, you have to be economically and socially disadvantaged. And so there are personal net worth caps, not only on the individual owners, but also on the gross receipts of the firm in order for them to be a small business. The city of Chicago also has caps which are higher than the U.S. Department of transportation. While on the federal level, there's something called a WOSB, a woman-owned small business. There are no caps on personal net worth, nor are there any cap, but there is a cap on small business. With respect to the state of Illinois, the state of Illinois has no personal net worth caps on the individual owners, but they don't use the SBA size standards. They say that you have to be under 75 million and we'll consider you a small business, where IDOT says, or not IDOT, the DB regulations say 22 million and you're a small business. And then Chicago Minority Supplier Council, Women's Business Development Center, which is a national certification that you take, have absolutely no size caps and absolutely no personal net worth caps. And so it's not to say that you're doing right or wrong by accepting all of the certifications, but that's why you're getting a variety probably of subcontractors, some who are super small and cannot compete with the larger businesses, the larger women minority businesses that actually could be doing 300 million a year, and all you're looking for is minority certification. So one of the things you want to keep in mind with your ordinance is this an ordinance based upon economic and social disadvantage, or economic, or is it just based upon social disadvantage?
And that's one of the reasons why we tested Sharon. I don't know the last time Evanston process has been reviewed, and so that's a larger issue. But the issue that I wanted to bring to the committee's attention was the fact that we have people utilizing MWEBE subcontractors as pass-throughs for suppliers in an effort to try and gain credit in order to try and gain the system.
Right.
Thank you. I'm gonna go with Michael. He's had his hand up for a while.
Yes, thanks. I'll be brief, but I just wanted to say that, you know, I can't speak to the ordinance or the legality or that, but some of the conversation we've been having for a while on the committee is around barriers to become certified, which has been expressed by a number of people, that the barriers to actually become certified are somewhat onerous and could be reviewed. One of the things that we've really pinpointed over the last year or so is that we don't have enough support in the city to provide access to subcontractors that can help, or contractors that can help fulfill these obligations. Many of the general contractors that we hire actually don't perform any work themselves. So, like Valenti, for example, wasn't in a position to hire any union employees themselves. They had to work with, convince, force, twist arms, however you may put it, to get subcontractors to participate in the local hiring concept. So I completely agree that we need a holistic, regenerative visit on the way we view and the way we go about doing this, to require a contractor to hire locally and give them few or no resources to do so, sets us up into a punitive system where they're planning on fines and building them into their contracts versus planning on conformance. And we've shifted that greatly. I think Sharon can help us with the statistics, but I think in the last year or so, we've seen our compliance go from about 20% to almost 45% compliance in the local hiring ordinance with municipal contracts, and to continue to focus on expanding that, opening that, making it easier for groups to comply, is something that I think needs to be on the same radar as visiting what our rules are, what our regulations are. As Michelle pointed out, it sounds like there's a lot of confusing rules and regulations out there that we perhaps need to prioritize for our community, and really drill down and focus on how to make sure people can be successful, because this is our priority. It's not necessarily the contractor's priority. And if we don't make it our priority to help them succeed, by visiting our laws, our requirements, our ordinances, by visiting our support system, our networks of contractors, our workforce development, our access to labor, the system breaks down. So we've talked a bit about it in the past. People, hear me talk about it almost every meeting. I think these are critical steps we've been taking, and I have to continue to reinforce the entire system, not just one piece of it or two pieces of it.
Thank you, Mike. Any other questions from committee members?
And Mike, I'm sorry, Councilmember Burns, I just wanted to also echo or underscore what Mike just mentioned. To my understanding, this is a goal for MWEBE, and the requirement is for local employment program. So I don't know, sometimes people mesh these two together, and I'm not sure if they need to be looked at separately and reinforced to make a more robust program for MWEBE. And is that what you're referring to, Mike? Because they're two different things.
Well, yeah, I'm referring to the entire process, right?
Okay.
If we're going to revisit it, we revisit it. Our ordinance is for local employment. Local employment is incredibly hard, and we need to discuss that if we don't build the workforce development part of it, so that there are people to employ that are employable, it is very difficult for contractors to employ them. So we have to fix that problem. But I think what Nick was talking about is that's a bottom-up approach. So I think what Nick was talking about is a top-down approach, looking at the values that underscored the original ordinances, and if we're meeting those, or if we need to readdress those as well. I think we have to stop separating all of this, right? It has to be holistic. It has to be regenerative. It has to be a system that is living and breathing and in place that fosters each one of these things. We can't just blame contractors for not fulfilling their obligations if we have no way for them to do it, right? Now they're agreeing to do it, and they have to make the effort to do it. But we need to support them better, and perhaps we do have to clarify our laws to better suit our current communities' priorities of what that means. And I don't have the answer. I'm just saying that all of this is related, and all of this is coming together. I think we've made great progress, and I think that Sharon, you've worked with the contractors over the last couple of years to really improve things from where they were and where the conversations were a number of years ago, and all that just keeps building on itself.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say a few things. So I was actually made a referral to disaggregate the minority MWEB data, and that got bounced to Sharon. And then it led me to a conversation with City Manager Storley, and now we're not quite sure where it is. So in that discussion, though, that short discussion, we brought up, local certification was brought up. So I do think I'm certainly not going to let that go. I think it's important that we truly understand our data better than we're getting it from some of the agencies that are currently certifying our WEB participants. And so as you do research, Council Cummings, I would like you to look into that to see how we can ensure that data is disaggregated so we have a better sense of what's happening here in our community. Any other questions, though, before we provide some final direction for Council Cummings? Any other questions or comments? Okay, so Council Cummings, let's revisit this. So you said there's two people that you identified that could help us with this moving forward. Is your recommendation that they come back to this committee and have a discussion with us get some direction from this committee, work on something with you, bring that back, or should they work? Is your recommendation that they work on something first, bring the draft back to the committee for us to review? What is your recommendation?
So I've taken note of Michelle's information. Thank you for putting that in the chat, Michelle. But I think that ultimately what may be more productive, and Dave can probably tell me if I'm wrong, is if we actually have these resources meet with city staff about our process, because that's one of the things that I took from Michelle's comments is the actual process in which we do this, and have that discussion and see if there's anything in terms of process improvement we can do without having to actually revise the code. And then maybe come back to the committee and say, this is what we came up with. And if we do need to revise the code, then have it go through the process that has to come from the committee and move its way up.
Okay, and please loop me into those discussions. I'd love to have Michelle a part of those conversations as well, and anybody else on the committee that would like to. But I certainly would like to be a part of the discussion just so I can learn with everyone, because this is an important topic, both for this committee, but also for me as with the legislative responsibility that I have. So thank you so much. If we don't have any other questions, next steps, it sounds like Council Cummings is going to work on scheduling a meeting between city staff and some of the community partners or folks that he's identified that can help us with this. And then once we have that discussion, we'll bring something back to the committee to review. If there's a ordinance change that's required, if there's no code change that's required, will this conversation come back to MWEBE, or the administrative change will be made and we'll monitor it on it, bring it here if we need to? What are your thoughts, Council?
I think if there's an administrative change or a process change with that we can handle as staff, I think it'll be reported to this committee, but I think the change will just be made internally. And then we'll just let the committee know that we sort of fixed the glitch, as they said in Office Space.
And, to Mike's point, I do think, I saw on our boards, committees, and commissions, we have a landing page on our website that kind of provides guidelines for how BCC should function and what they should do in terms of annual reporting. And I remember specifically for this committee, it talked about having NWEB program, I think is the word that was used. And so, to Mike's point, I do think that that we should look to revisiting how we achieve our goals, and I know Council Member Braithwaite can add that on a future agenda so we can talk about how to begin that work. Does anybody have any other comments now that they've heard kind of the recommendation from Council Cummings and next steps? Are we in agreement that the recommendation is supported by this committee, or would we like to go in another direction? How does the committee feel? Are we good? I'm taking silence as a yes. So we are good.
All good.
Sounds good.
All good.
Okay. Council Cummings, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have.
Thank you, Nick.
So next up, I think we're going back up to 4, Old Business, Illinois Lead Service Line Replacement and Notification Act.
Yes, that's going to be me, just to give a brief 50,000-foot overview about what this is. Ina was good enough to mention this service line act. It's the Illinois Lead Service Line Replacement Program, and just want to tell the committee why it's being done, and then tell them our part and basically what's going to happen over the next few months to prepare the workforce quickly to devise a pipeline to have additional plumbers as well as pipe fitters. So I don't know how familiar you are with the overview of the program that the state has this initiative for. but millions of homes across and municipalities across the country have these lead toxic metal lines that need to be replaced, basically. So it's a state law that passed this year and requires municipalities to develop a plan to replace all of the service lead lines starting 2024. Dave, you can correct me if I'm incorrect in any of the dates. And the city will begin a pilot project next year that will consist of implementation of the plan. So what we're looking to do is the state has an initiative for minority participation that's about 11%, is my understanding, for minority companies, 8% for women, and then 2% for disadvantaged businesses. And from a workforce perspective, we're looking for plumbers, pipe fitters that are needed to train for the city of Evanston's renovation. So I have been in contact with the Pipe Fitters Union. I understand they'll be accepting applications beginning in October. My contact says it's October. It'll be the entire month and then beyond, because they anticipate a swell of new apprentices for this program in particular. The local plumbers union will begin accepting applications late January, I was told. They could change that, but I'm in the loop to understand it's January 2022. They are revising their curriculum again for a swell of income of apprentices. And Ina did touch on this in training for these upcoming projects. So both unions are aware of the state initiatives. They're going to adjust their schedules accordingly. I'll be working with community engagement department to make sure that we promote this and make sure that we have a pipeline to accept people who want to come in and get changed or trained rather for these two disciplines. So that's pretty much it. The project is basically a very long-term project. I mean, we're talking years and over multiple counties and townships. And so we're going to work closely with ERW, which is Evanston Rebuilding Warehouse, to focus on the training for Evanston residents to get into the union. They can provide the wraparound services that are needed. And also just train some of the laborers that are here locally, so they have some of the skill sets, and we can get on to these projects and enhance the workforce and bring revenue back to the city where it should be. So the committee will be updated on the progress. I think that's about it. Any information that I get, I want to make sure that I include that on the MWEBE page. And the progress once we have more details. So that's what I have for that.
Two quick things before we open it up. Sharon, actually
Sure.
maybe Director Stoneback, is this discussion also happening at one of our standing committee meetings, or is it making its way to a standing committee through MWEBE?
To my knowledge, it would have to come through MWEBE.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. And then the second question before we open it up is, what is the total projected cost to do this? I know we have, I think, 33 years to replace all of our lead lines. Director Stoneback, do you know what the total projected cost?
In 2021 dollars, we believe it's $168 million. And over the 33 years, we project that at 2% rate increase, it will be about $224 million.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions? Open it up to committee members for questions.
I would just like to add that in addition to plumbers and pipe fitters, when we do the work inside of a home, a lot of people's water meter is in a location that may require drywall to be removed and replaced, and other inside wall petitions and things like that. So there, in my opinion, there will be a need for carpenters as well to repair the interior of homes after the meters have been replaced, or the water service has been replaced. So I think there's an opportunity there as well.
Any questions from committee members or comments?
Thank you, Dave.
So I want to say, so I also made a referral about this, and it was determined that because we were already having a conversation about lead line replacement, that this was instead of it going through, instead of us adding another item to an agenda, that this city manager Storley felt like this would be the best venue to bring this up and provide direction. So I have had a lot of concern because for something that is this important, and I've done some back of the napkin calculation, and you know, I think from talking to city staff, they feel pretty confident that if we were to develop our and this is an idea that I came up with, that I hopefully we can get staff to support it if it makes sense. But basically, after talking to staff, they said if we were to create our own kind of local apprenticeship program through our water department, that we could potentially train people to replace the lead service line in between the service valve and the water main. So the public portion of the water service line. They said we don't have the necessary we don't have the capabilities to train people to do any of the water main work, nor the water service line between the water meter and the service valve in the parkway. And so my question was, if we set aside the public water service line work, back of the napkin, I think it was about $88 million. I did some calculations based on some numbers we got from Director Stoneback at our last meeting. But we're talking about $88 million that we could direct. We could potentially direct towards Evanston residents. Now, I think one of the challenges is typically when this work is bidded out, it's bidded out all together, I would imagine. So, you know, water main, and correct me if I'm wrong, Director Stoneback, you know, the water main work, the water service line replacement, I would imagine it's all bid out together. And so to set aside a portion of that work for you know, a local work for local residents to do there might be some complications in that. But I was asked during this meeting to provide direction to staff to look into it, because my concern is that the unions are going to have people contacting them from all over, and they will accept some Evanston residents, I'm sure, but we can't guarantee that everyone in Evanston who's interested in participating in our lead pipe replacement here in Evanston will be trained. It's not our training program. It's not for us to decide who is accepted into the programs and when they're accepted. And meanwhile, this work will continue. And so what we do know, though, is that there is a portion of this work that we have, that city staff is equipped to train people to do it right now. We do know back of the napkin that's anywhere between $40 to $80 million, and we'll figure out how much of that will go to labor that we could, you know, pump directly into our Evanston economy through hiring Evanston residents. And I think it is, at the bare minimum, just at least worth directing staff to do some research and see what we would need to do to come up with that type of apprenticeship program. Director Stoneback, I see your hands up.
Yes, thank you. Unfortunately, if they're to replace the water service between the water main and the shutoff valve in the parkway, you need to be a plumber unless you work for the municipality. So Evanston can train people how to do that work, but then Evanston doesn't, we're not plumbers. So if we train people, they would have to go to work for a plumbing company, because you can't just go replace the lead service lines unless you are a plumber or working for the municipality. So, and there will be opportunities. I think I would not want to split the work, the lead service line replacement associated with the replacement of water main, because you only want one contractor on the street at a time. But with our program, we're going to need to replace lead service lines at areas where we are not replacing the water main. But again, that work has to be completed by a plumber. So
yeah, so I think my thing is a plumber or a city staff, and so what I'm proposing is that city staff would do that work. That we would be training people. We will be expanding our apprenticeship program to include a division or whatever we're gonna call it that is specifically assigned to replace the water service line between the shutoff valve and the water meter. So
right, but when we go to hire people, there is no requirement that you have to be an Evanston resident. We hire the most qualified person to do it. Now we take in apprentices, and as an apprentice, we can require that they be an Evanston resident. And we have found that a lot of our permanent positions are filled by people that were apprentices. So we are increasing the number of employees that are Evanston residents because we're hiring a lot of our apprentices. But even when we bring an apprentice in, there is no guarantee of a full-time job to that manner. Yes, we could increase the size of our distribution crew. We could, given the budget, we could add 3 more people and the equipment and materials needed to have another crew that would replace lead service lines. This is something that we're concerned about because the law also requires that if a leak develops in a lead service line, you must replace the entire line. Well, that's going to require the work between the main and the valve. And we're concerned that we won't have enough employees on staff to be able to do that unless we do expand. But again, the city right now at this point in time does not have a requirement that you have to be an Evanston resident to get a full-time job.
Any other questions before I move on? Any other questions? So again, I can't let this go. I'm gonna have to, because I was asked by the city manager to do it here, I'm gonna have to direct staff to please look into this. I understand it's the deterring from the way we typically do things, but I think there's something here, and if it requires additional equipment, additional staff, additional training, I think there's something here. And if there was ever a time where there was money to do it, it's now. We have potential. We got our own local ARPA money. We have some state money. Director Stoneback, you just talked about that we may be eligible for. Eventually this federal bill will pass, and we should get money there. But in addition, so I would like to see how we can guarantee a certain amount of Evanston residents get this work. And I'm not convinced that it's through the unions. I think they play an important part. I think rebuilding warehouse plays an important part, and we certainly should continue to have those discussions and have them train as many Evanston residents as possible. But if I'm using history to inform how I feel about this, we've just never been able to say for sure. We've never been able to guarantee a certain amount of Evanston residents are trained through local unions. It's just not the way it works. And Sharon, in your conversations with the union, I hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully we can say, look, we have 100 people, right, that are interested in being gainfully employed over the next 30 years.
It's a volunteer program, Councilmember Burns, so we can't make these folks, sign up with the unions. It's only a money order, your high school transcripts, and something else.
Yeah, so Sharon, that's not my point. So what I'm saying is I could find you 100 people yesterday. Mm-hmm. That would be, if we told them you have gainful employment for the next 33 years replacing water service lines in the city of Evanston where you live, I could have a line full of people yesterday. And so my question is, if I bring the unions 100 people that are eligible, because all the things that I've heard you say before and I understand, sure, can they guarantee that those 100 people are trained? That's my question.
Yeah, after training, because they're not just going to put, bodies on there. There's safety issues and everything else that could be. Yeah.
But can they guarantee that they're enrolled
on our
timeline and not theirs?
Right.
That's
yeah, that I cannot speak to. We'd have to have a C-level executive here from one of the unions, because each union is different on how you get in. So we're talking about the 2 and now the 3 carpenters, plumbers, pipe fitters, and laborers. Laborers is the shortest training, and you're also paid when you're an apprentice as well. So it depends on which one. But thank you for that. I see your.
We're going to kids to Michael next, but I just want to be clear. We have a local apprenticeship program here. People are also provided, I think, it's either $15, $16, or $20 an hour. I can't recall. I had a meeting with staff from the water department about it, and I also want to make it clear that they are a part of the union. Collective bargaining is still involved. It's just a different union. I believe it's ASME. So we're still talking about, folks who are getting paid for an apprenticeship program and this concept that I'm speaking of. And then we're still talking about people that are protected and covered by union. Michael, you're up.
Just a brainstorm idea. I think I see Dave's point that if we staff up for this, it eventually ends, right? The work doesn't go on forever. And if it's only a crew or two, that its effect may be minimal. But if we invested the resources and partnered with the plumbing union to say, we're going to apprentice these people, we're going to train them, we can't make them plumbers, but when they come through, when we do this work, they'll have on-the-job training. The Rebuilders Warehouse also offers the other training that they need: math, OSHA, first aid, all those other things. If we combine these things and just say, okay, we're going to prepare these 100 people, right? Every year we're going to have another crop of people who we've apprenticed and trained to be employable by the union, right? Because you can't, an apprentice in the union is not a raw employee. They have training, they have education, they have certain criteria that they must meet to just even apply. We might be able to do the work, keep the money in Evanston, employ people, train them, and give them the step into the union where they can go on to employment throughout the region, right? Not just be supported by Evanston's taxes, as a regenerative process. And maybe something we talked through on that. I mean, I know people, I have a very good friend who went through the apprenticeship program in the water department, and he's gone on to a very successful career there. I can speak highly of that experience and of his experience. And I think maybe that this is an opportunity you've touched on, Councilman, that this could be a spark to bring people to full-time employment, to union employment, to $100,000 a year jobs that the city isn't permanently employing, but is temporarily, while we have this opportunity, training and preparing to be into that in that trade. It's just a thought to kind of think about if that's clear, of how it may work in a very slightly different manner.
Come on.
Oh, sorry. No, I just wanted to piggyback off what you were saying, Bobby, that I agree 100% that, the union way is definitely not the best way to go, although, they're there. But in general, the barriers that exist historically with unions, it's almost as if, to me, it needs to be, reevaluated, whatever barriers are there. And I missed part of what you were saying. I know you were talking about a program that you were doing, but that was like on my mind as well as something that needs to shift or change when it comes to the unions and the barriers that exist, especially for Black people getting in there. So just supporting what you were just saying in general.
And so just to close this out again, because we've said some things that might have flew over people's head, because I have a little bit more background on this. We currently have a local apprenticeship program, a lot smaller, obviously, than the one that we would need to create to provide the level of staff or workers to do this work. But we have a model that exists today. And I think what Director Stoneback was saying as far as adding additional staff is just we don't have council hasn't provided direction to say, look, we're willing to fund the expansion of a department that could do this work, the equipment that would be needed, the staff the workforce that would be needed. And so what I'm saying is that I'm willing to go either direction as long as I can guarantee 100 people on our timeline, right, are hired and ready to work in Evanston to do the work that we know is not going to be temporary, right? We're talking about 33 years we have to replace all of our lead water service line in Evanston. So it's 33-year work. We can do the calculation and figure out how many people will be involved in that work in Evanston, but I would imagine it's a significant amount. And the question is, how can we ensure that a significant portion of the people who are excavating our parkways right outside of your home is an Evanston person? That's the question that I'm trying to figure out how to answer. And I don't want to I don't want it to be simple as doing it the same way that we've always done it, unless there's an indication that they're changing the way they do it, and they almost can't, right? They're going to be taking in people from everywhere, from all over Illinois. I'm not even putting this off on the union and making it seem like it's their fault. They're going to be taking people in from all over the state. And so the idea that they can prioritize one city in Illinois and make sure that our folks are trained and ready to do this work just isn't realistic. And so the question is, what can we do to supplement that training? Director Stoneback.
I'm sorry. I just want to say that I'll craft a memo and send it off to the city manager. I can copy the committee on what it is, but it would be a plan to bring in more apprentices and then eventually expand the size of the distribution crew. With the experience that we have, that most apprentices get hired into a full-time position anyway. In that way, I think we would increase work for Evanston residents, but I can't see us expanding our workforce by more than 6 people within the next 5 years. I mean, we would outgrow our space and capability. But that would be one way of trying to increase. I'm sorry.
Councilmember Burns, you're on mute.
I know how this is. It's like we think from what we have today, but I would like all those considerations there to say, look, if we were going to do this, we need this much more space, right? Like, challenge this committee and also the council to think big. And if we can't do it, we can't do it. But if we don't have the numbers in front of us and how to make it possible in front of us, then we're never going to do things different than we've done before and realize these important advancements in workforce development. So I don't want you to give us something that's pie in the sky. Let us know, like, look, if we were to do this crazy thing, this is what we would need. And then it's up to this committee and council to figure out if it's something that's realistic. We're going to council member, and then also Sharon, to your point, if you can, invite, I think you recommended some folks out from the union to talk to this question. I'd love to hear from them. I think that was a wonderful idea.
Sure, happy to do that.
Councilmember Braithwaite, and then we're going to move on to the next item.
Thank you, Councilmember Burke. Dave, I know the what you've done with our apprentice program is more than we can address in one meeting. But can you just give us like 60 seconds before you close out, Dave? How many people have gone through the program, the time it takes to get someone up to speed to where they can work full time, just as a follow-up to what I hear Councilmember Burns saying. And then we'll invite you back at a later date to give us a more detailed report.
I would think that it would take about a year to get somebody trained up to where we felt that, they'd be ready and probably the best qualified to become a permanent worker.
Okay.
And I guess my plan would be is that we hire 3 apprentices now, and then have them work in 22, and then in 23 indicate that we're going to expand our crew size by three employees, and hopefully those 3 employees are the successful ones getting the jobs, and then right away bring in 3 new apprentices, and then the year after that say we're going to expand our crew size by 3 more. Sure. And we could probably do that every other year, and you know, at some point we're going to hit the sweet spot where, you know, we got enough work for everybody, and as many employees hired as we can handle. But yeah, I can start putting a memo together. It takes a 3-man crew. It takes pieces of vehicle to do the work. Our challenge will be is that I don't know that we're not, as our crew, we're allowed to do the work out in our public right of way. We're not allowed to do the work on the homeowner side.
Right.
And we're also not allowed to create partial lead service lines.
Right.
So at some point we have to work with you know, maybe we can have the plumber go from the house to the parkway, and then we do from the parkway out to the water main at these locations. So that is something that we can do. I'll start figuring out what each 3-man crew is and a timeline for what I think we can do it, and present that to the city manager and to the committee. Please,
I'll say this.
Give me about a month to get that done, because
I'm watching your hair. I'm watching your hair turn gray, Dave. But if there was a person out there that could make it happen, to be able to tell that romantic story, because we're not talking about training them to be a part of a staff, but it's reasonably, it's to give them the skills necessary to be able to do this very specific work that they'll be able to do for quite some time. So I'll leave it right there. I think we've shared enough. Thank you so much for coming to our committee, and we'll continue this discussion.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Dave.
Moving on to staff reports, MWEBE and LEP tracking report.
Yeah, that's going to be me, Councilmember Burns. Thank you. Just for the sake of time, very briefly, I'll go over 3 points. The report is in your packet as of August. We have participation that stands at 40% with over $4 million in minority subcontractors contracting out over $10.8 million. So contracts were waived due to preclusion to subcontracting opportunities at $2.9 million. The accounting manager and myself are working on returning the roughly $46,000 that's missing from the LEP penalty violation fund. I'll have a full report with figures in November. If you recall, we had some monies removed from our fund, and I know the report says $56,000. That's what it should be once this $46,000 is placed back in. I have been in contact with the accounting manager. He told me it was a matter of a journal entry. So I'm not an accountant, but I'll be working with him. So we'll be at full capacity in November. And just as a side note, I have another $2,600 coming in once the project manager processes another violation from 2019 with Landmark Contractors. It was a $2.1 million project. They didn't quite make it, so they have a partial penalty of roughly $2,600. They had some issues on the, Main Street corridor, improvement renovation. They've been trying to talk with me about doing something, but they have no documentation or proof that they had to replace an LEP person because once one doesn't work out, you can't just stop. You need to employ somebody else. I don't have proof of that. The contractor can't provide it to me. So this partial penalty will stand until you can prove that you've done due diligence to make an effort to replace the person. And I'm confident they don't have that. So I'd like to see that penalty go through. And that's where we are.
Come on, I see your hand, but do you have a question on this item?
Oh, sorry, no, that was from before.
Okay. Yep, no problem. Any questions? Okay. I don't see any questions. Any questions going once, going twice? Okay. I think that is all. That's all I see. Staff reports. We did new business on MWEBE. Supplier policy discussion was provided to us by Council Cummings. So that is all.
And Councilmember Burns, just in the interest of time, we don't want to take too much more because we're at the 2-hour mark. Mike McLean will have an introduction on his retail expansion program. We'd like to get some notes that he put together sent out to the committee for review. We're going to discuss it in November at our next committee meeting. So he'll go into detail about that. And I think that's all we have, and other items that'll be put on the agenda as well. But I just wanted to mention Mike's introduction to that MWEBE retail expansion program. He's worked hard on that. So
perfect. Well, thank you for everybody for attending and everybody who presented. This was a really informative meeting, and we'll see you soon. Do we know when the next meeting is?
The next meeting will be November, whatever the third Wednesday is. The date escapes me. I want to say the 17th because I don't have my calendar in front of me real quick.
But that's a good point. So we're the third Wednesday of each month. Is that what we're doing?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It is the third Wednesday of each month. I messed up when I put out the agenda for the year because this is a holiday. So it was supposed to be on the 22nd for this year. But I can tell you real quick. The next one should be the 17th. I was correct. November 17th. It's a week before the holiday.
Sharon, can you make sure that Jared Davis is added to the list? I don't know. Oh, there he is. He's here, but he isn't receiving the correspondence. So if we have to, if Tammy's the person, if we can make sure she knows and has the right email address, that would be great.
Okay, that's
and also,
correct.
Sharon, I've noticed some committees do this and others don't. But if it's not too much trouble to send out a calendar invite, a Google Calendar invite, I found that helpful in other committees just to keep us all on the same page.
Yeah, that's done along with the packet.
Okay, good, excellent, wonderful. Okay, well, seeing no other business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Do we need to do a roll call out, or how does this work?
My understanding, if there's no other items on the agenda, we can adjourn, but
that's my understanding.
I think we're good. All right.
Thanks all.
Okay, good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.